Today I'm excited for this one. We got Dr. Namrata. Is that right, Doc? That's
That's
right,
right.
right?
Spot on.
Spot on. I'm excited. Doc has a unique story. A practicing dentist, and well, she was a practicing dentist, but now she's doing other stuff. So, Dr. Namrata, well, thank you so much for taking the time, getting on here. I truly appreciate it.
So I was, an expat dentist for a while, and I was trying to figure out how do I get myself back on track here? Because it's kind of an icky feeling when you put so much of your effort and energy into something and you're good at it. And then you find yourself in these situations which you chose technically because, I found a great guy. I got married. I was like, I'm not losing him for anything. Kind of reliant on people like you to tell me what you went through. What I can say is from the tech side of things, right? So look at it from all perspectives. That's usually what I tell people to do is you want to zoom out. Every new thing will be difficult in the beginning until it really finds its footing. And what that means is there will be no such thing as a perfect solution to anything. It comes down to having choice. What's more important is that we will have certain amount of dentists who will want something like a DSO. They're pretty much okay with it if they don't have to manage all the clinical work. And for them, they feel that's not who they are. So for them, DSOs actually becomes a pretty comfortable option for a few years at least, right? And by the way, I don't define success as who's the billionaire because that's actually not very hard to do if you're just stick at it and you have a certain demeanor to you. But it's more about who will I follow genuinely, right? Who is a person that's reflecting my values and my principles? And authentic leaders, you can take a name of a few. You have Gandhi, you have Mandela, you have Mother Teresa. These are all people who are just so themselves. And stubborn optimism is kind of, let me take the example of Gandhi or Mandela even. So Gandhi was like, okay, we have this problem. We got these Britishers that we don't want ruling our country anymore. But his approach was, I'm going to defy the way people usually do it. And he made a lot of enemies in-house because of his approach. But he was like, I'm going to live like a farmer. I'm going to represent India at the topmost level. So even the way he dressed, even the way that he spoke. But when he spoke with such authority because what he was saying was so true and nobody could deny the truth. So stubborn optimism is that, where you're like, I'm going to do what I know my heart tells me as the right morally principled thing to do. And these are my values. And there is nothing on the planet that can move me away from these three values that I hold. Your intuition is always going to nudge you. So listen to your body, listen to yourself, because when in those moments where courage is needed from you, you're going to know. It's a nagging feeling inside of you. And whether you act on it or not is all a mind game, because whatever you're thinking and how you're talking to yourself up here is the first step. So you want to start flipping the way you're talking to yourself first, right? And you want to be able to say to yourself that, why am I thinking in this direction? Why can't I have the courage to think the other way? So if you're afraid to take a leap and think that it'll be an absolute failure, what if it's an absolute success?
All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of DentMent. Man, this is a weird one. I'm doing the podcast at 8 in the morning. I was just telling the doc, I was like, man, I'm still waking up.
Yeah, I got you there.
Well, today I'm excited for this one. We got Dr. Namrata. Is that right, Doc?
That's
right,
right.
right?
Spot on.
Spot on. I'm excited. Doc has a unique story. A practicing dentist, and well, she was a practicing dentist, but now she's doing other stuff. So, Dr. Namrata, well, thank you so much for taking the time, getting on here. I truly appreciate it. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself to everyone. Uh, the most important thing that I always ask people is that I just want to know the reason behind what you do, why you do it. The why is so important, right? We just want to know what your goal is, what your mission is. So if you want to introduce yourself to everyone, I would truly appreciate it.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Milad. I'm Dr. Namrata. I'm a dentist and I'm a medtech executive. I'm based in Switzerland now for the past 11 years. Grown up all over the place. I'm the daughter of a diplomat. So literally very, very well traveled, very much a global citizen. And when I reached my late teenage, I finally decided I want to pursue dentistry. So I finally found myself in my mother country after pretty much a foreign childhood. And I said, let's settle down in India. Let's do some dentistry. And I did. Um, Practiced for a few years, especially in endo, which ended up becoming my area of expertise. I am a general dentist, but I did do a lot of my area of focus was endo, mainly because, well, nobody really teaches us a lot of root canal treatments when we're at university. So I was just like, how can I become a dentist if I don't know how to do root canals? And then I just got obsessed with it, and I did pursue my clinical practice in India for quite some time, after which I moved to Slovenia, um, was there for a few years, and then finally found my roots in Switzerland after I got married. So I was, an expat dentist for a while, and I was trying to figure out, how do I get myself back on track here? Because it's kind of an icky feeling when you put so much of your effort and energy into something and you're good at it, and then you find yourself in these situations which you chose technically, because I found a great guy, I got married, I was like, I'm not losing him for anything. So then I came here and I said, but I still need to get my feet back because I'm a very driven person and I do want to be financially independent. So I transitioned into the med tech space. And that was a smart move because not an easy one, it was a smart one. And what I realized was, with a very dental CV, it's not that easy to get into corporate because everybody's trying to fit you in this box. And I was many things outside of just being a dentist. So it was a few years of figuring out, like, where do I really fit in this space? And there's a lot of potential in Switzerland for medtech. So there was no dearth of opportunity. It was just trying to show people that there's so much more to me than the box that they were trying to put me in. But anyways, I really hustled my bums off, and finally I found my feet in got my big foot in the door, and I found myself as a clinical and regulatory consultant. And I was working with all very high risk medical devices. So very novel, out there ideas, technologies in the spinal field, cardiovascular, very unique designs of helping treat heart attacks, and also in orthopedic. So I was doing everything but dental. So then COVID happened, and I said to myself, why am I not doing any dental? Because there's this whole part of my brain which is completely being switched off here, and I want to use that skill. So finally, I opened my little side business on top of my corporate, work. And I started exclusively supporting dental companies with their marketing and medical writing needs. Alongside that, I was also volunteering at the European Medical Writers Association, and I started rising that ladder in my volunteering space. And I'm currently the co-chair for the medical writers, the medical device special interest group. So there was a lot happening for many years. But the good thing that happened from all this very busy period in my life was that I now understood what it was to be a clinician. I know that after X number of years, which is usually 10 to 15 years, we as clinicians start looking beyond that clinical practice that we've been managing for a certain time. We start feeling that need to expand our careers and look for different options. What else can I do? Because we reach that place of, is this like, it's my 50,000th cavity of the day? Do I have to do this for the next 30 years of my life? Come on, man. And it's one of those hush hush things that we don't really talk about, but I'm going to say it out loud because I know pretty much everybody goes through this. So then I was like, okay, so, I know that clinicians are going through this inside their hearts, but they're not really vocal about it. On the other side, I was having this very detailed, very in-depth experience working with top medtech executives, teams, building products, building medical devices. And then I honed down in the dental niche, and I brought that knowledge from the high risk into the dental, because not a lot of people are able to do that, right? Plus, I was a dentist, so I was becoming a very unique resource for a lot of companies. And once you work on the dental side, you'll be surprised to know how little contact these teams have with a decent number of clinicians to vet their ideas, just to talk to someone about their ideas. And the usual norm is 2 to 3 key opinion leaders. That's pretty much it. This is for small, mid-sized companies. And what they needed was easy access to a larger number of clinicians. So what I came up with was this idea. I said, hey, you know what? We know that clinicians want other experiences. What better field for them to serve than the dental product industry? Because you've been using these products, you know how they're used. What's missing in their arsenal is just how are devices made. So they need to understand how things work on the other side of the table to become premium advisors. So I launched this program called the Premium Dental Advisor Program, which is exclusively designed for full-time clinicians who want to support the tech industry and expand their careers in this space. So this program was designed really for any clinician who wants to be involved in tech, right? And it's designed in a way that you could be a full-time clinician and you take out 1 or 2 hours per week, nothing more, and you can still expand your career. We've got a whole system in place. The other side of the story was, let's make a platform now where companies can upload their projects and dentists from across the world can apply to those projects, right? We've just eased the gap. We've just created equal opportunities for both sides, right? And we've moved beyond simply word of mouth. And now the industry can have more people involved rather than my board member knows that guy, so let me call that guy. And that guy has one opinion. And then we think that that guy is representing the entire world of dentistry, which really isn't the case. You want more people, you want more statistical significance in your data. You want to give your teams the opportunity to be able to talk to more people, right? So that's basically my story. So from all this experience, last year I launched this thing called the Global Dentists Pool and the Premium Dental Advisor Program, which is essentially designed to bring this whole ecosystem into one place and go beyond word of mouth. And the whole idea is to give freedom. It's to give freedom to the people, to the clinicians, to be able to choose for options other than let me open 10 other practices and become the CEO of, and then burn myself out. There's more things you can do, and this is a great way to be able to open an additional revenue channel. You can do so many more things. You don't have to give up on clinical practice. You could freelance from anywhere and get projects from anywhere in the world. So with that journey, I now basically am fundraising. I already launched the pool. We are already getting companies in who are taking support from our pool members. We're 250 people strong across 30 countries, and we're getting more and more people into the program. So it's kind of taking off now. We're right at that stage of it taking off. But this is what I absolutely love to do now. This is my life. I just absolutely love doing this. So that's my story.
Yeah, that is so amazing. That is, I love that. You know why? Because like the most important thing for the whole thing is that, and I had this conversation yesterday. Actually, I had the conversation with one of my patients yesterday, and we were like talking about it. I think it's such a fascinating thing that dentistry. What I realized after I graduated dental school is that dentistry is like a box, right? You're in this box that all you have to do is just be chairside to make money. If you're not chairside, you're not making money. So the freedom that you mentioned, it's such an important thing to have, because me personally, like you mentioned, man, some days I go to work and I'm like, how many crown props or more? You know what I mean? Like it just becomes so repetitive. But like the reality of it is, this is
Visions of your brain exploding, right?
yeah, I know. You're like, but yeah, but that's what I love about these conversations, because bringing the awareness around this type of thing is so important for especially the younger dentists to understand, because when we are in dental school, that's all we talk about. It's like, oh man, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna open 30 practices, I'm gonna be, but they don't understand as soon as you transition. And these are the type of thing that they don't teach in dental school, and that's why like the whole idea of like I told you, the whole idea of DentMent is really just that, because I want the dental student to understand what is going on the other side of the world of dentistry, which is like practicing in the real world, dealing with the patient, and it's so difficult sometimes, even when I transition out and then you get to a certain point in your career, you're like, man, I need other alternatives. Like I have to be able to do something. Why do you think that is, that we the dentists, like you mentioned something that is fascinating. Why do you think that dentists have a hard time admitting the fact that they're just tired of doing what they do on a daily basis. Do you think is that just because they don't want to like expose themselves to like the criticism of it, or do you think it's just like we're just like we don't have other alternative? Like, why do you think that is?
It's such a fascinating question. We actually asked our pool members this, that why is this happening? And there were a multiple kind of few reasons that came through. One of them is there is definitely taboo. So it depends on which part of the world you're a dentist in, right? If you are in the United States, because we are talking to that audience today, you have certain debt that you've taken on when you leave university. And the number one reason for the US practitioners was we don't want to risk losing a job. Whether we like it or not doesn't matter until this debt thing is completed and we can feel more financially secure. So, in that process, I don't think they're allowing themselves to even have that feeling of, oh, did I really sign up for this? And you're not really allowing that emotion to take over because you're like, no, because if I leave, what else can I do? And that fear and that insecure kind of emotion that comes within us, it's a very valid feeling. It's not wrong. And what I'm trying to do is you don't have to leave it, but be smart and start thinking about 5 years from now. Start thinking about 10 years from now. So you want to start educating yourself on, so there's so much to learn out there, you know. And I know you've just left university. You thought that you got the whole shebang. It was hard. We all know it. We've all been through it. But there's never no real harm from learning more. And what's the worst that could happen? You'll open more opportunities for yourself. Is that really a bad thing? But at least you'll be smarter in the way you approach your career. So that's the number one reason, was just that financial stress, that if I leave this, is there anything that could pay me equally as to what I'm getting right now? Even if I don't like it, I'll rather stick with it. The other side of the story is, if you're on the east side of the world, if you're a dentist in the east part of the world, you're miserably underpaid. And that's something we were made very, very clear. It's not the debt as much as it is the fact, on top of that, you're actually, the pay is very low. Why? Because a lot of people become dentists in the east part of the world, especially in Asia. So their pain was also financial. It was just a different approach, that, hey, I didn't do 5, 6 years of this education to get this. An Uber driver is earning more than me, right? So then the need becomes a bit higher for those guys, because not only do most of them have debt, but they also are not being paid enough. So the drive is different. The reasons are different. The second thing is societal taboo. So maybe when you were growing up, you've seen a dentist who did something different, and your parents or someone in your house said, well, why did they go through all that pain and put themselves through that? Like, you hear these things growing up, and then you're like, I'm not going to say it out loud because, I don't want to tingle nerves here, and my mom's going to have a heart attack if I tell. So there's a lot of that. But the thing is, what I usually coach all the people in my program is, this is about you. We love the people you've grown up with. Hopefully you do. But it's really not about them. This is your life. This is your career. And you want to make sure that it's not gray. It's not black and white. It's not that I have to leave this to pursue this. That's usually how I've seen men think more than the women. And they're like, oh, I have to stop clinical practice so that I can then completely become a key opinion leader or an executive, a chief executive officer at a medical device company. No, you want to gradually start planning things. You want to gradually start reducing the hours in clinical, start doing other things, see what you like in this field. And one great field where you're an immediate match is the medtech space, because all the dental products are being made there. So why not, right? So that's probably my reason on why people are so hesitant to say this out loud. But we don't need to be so scared anymore. I think we can talk about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think before the podcast, I told you like like last year in October, when like I was going through the same thing. I was like, man, I don't think I can do this, and I can't. I don't think I like. It's not that I don't want to do it. I enjoy the clinical side of it, right? I enjoy what I do. I enjoy dentistry, and I invested a lot of time to get to where I'm at, right? But at the same time, I always, same thing, I ask myself, is like, is that what I want to do really for the rest of my life? And the answer to it is no, I don't want to, right? And so with that being said, but like, for dentistry, where do you see the next 5 to 10 years is going to look like for a lot of the dentists? Do you see more of the dentists kind of want to step away? Because I think the generation is changing, right? As more and more people coming out with social media, with the internet, with everything else that's happening, I think the landscape is changing. So where do you see it the next 5 to 10 years, the landscape of dentistry is going to be like?
I think we're in this spectacular time, and I'm a stubborn optimist. Just to make everybody aware, I'm the person who sees the half glass full. In fact, I'll just see it full all the time. But I am also a realist. So here's what I've observed in terms of trends in the U.S. DSOs are becoming the norm. What does that mean? A dentist who graduates within the next few years is already or will most likely opt for the 9 to 5 at the DSO. It's kind of becoming a more structured format compared to maybe you and me. When I started practicing, it was you have your clinic or you're working at someone's clinic. Um, Hours were flexible. You got to choose that. Some days, if you're sick, you can actually say no to a patient, right? But then you end up working more because it's your clinic and you're kind of leading it, especially in the early days when you want to make money as soon as possible to make back whatever you spent in the education part. But now, in my opinion, dentists will be more used to the idea of I go to work here, I work from X to X hours, and then I go back home. And this is kind of like, it's becoming a corporate style to working in a very clinical field. So that's where the future is headed. The other thing, which if you zoom out even outside of dentistry in general, we're seeing a lot of people move. It's no longer I am loyal to this thing. What we're seeing the trends show us is that people are comfortable with moving. Now, we're already seeing that in the United States, right? So one of the biggest pain points of most DSOs is churn, right? People move from this place to this place. And I laugh about it. I'm like, duh, it's happening in every industry. It's not just dentistry. People have found it's an employee's market. You found that opportunity to keep moving and trying different options until you find your click. So in that sense, I think where the next 5 to 10 years is, not only are we going to see a lot of AI from the tech side, right? If I go into the medical device side of it or the tech side of it, you're getting a lot of AI agents. They're going to come in. They're going to start replacing certain jobs to a certain extent. I say that very, I'm a very guarded person when I make that statement. But assistance, you're going to get a lot of help from AI, right? And it gives people more opportunities to move around, right? You can go and see where you're fitting. So it's going to be a fantastic time to just sit and observe and live through, because now we're seeing this boom in a very new kind of technology, AI. And we're also seeing these trends and personality changes from the people, the generation itself, which is I will go where I am respected. I will go where I am valued, right? And I will not stick around environments that don't feed me what I need to feel fulfilled in my life. So this is across all industries, but why not dentistry? Of course, we're already seeing it. So that's where I see the next 5 years. It's going to be a whole lot of AI, a lot of people using AI and taking advantage of it for their own clinics, but more independence, more freedom. Just bringing back to that word, you want more freedom, you want more options. You're going to see people asking for that.
Yeah. The one thing that I also wanted, it's one of the fascinating conversation that I always have with a lot of the practitioners, especially like the practitioners that have been doing this for a long time. And the conversation is around the corporate dentistry. Uh, I feel, at least I work for a few corporate dentists, right? Before dentistry, before I kind of settled down in like a little small practice now. And the one thing that I always, if I, the one thing that I see difference between the corporate dentistry and I see between like a small private practice is that corporate dentistry, they created a system, right? And you're part of the system. You're not truly part of a team because that system is what's working, right? It's like a chain effect. But the private practice, you're truly part of a team and you're building a team with those individuals because it has a system, but it's in a smaller setting, right? Even the practices that are 8 or 9 or 10. Um, with that being said, with corporate dentistry, I always ask this question: you know, from a perspective of a system, with the perspective of a team, with perspective of what the DSOs and these organizations are doing, do you believe that the DSOs or the corporate dentistry is harming the dental industry, or actually are they good for the dental industry? Because in my opinion, and that's just my personal opinion, I think, and saying the things that I see in the US, just US speaking, I believe that uh, the corporate dentistry, they're doing a little bit of a harm to the patient experience, and they're also doing a little bit of a harm to the experience of a dentist. I don't believe that they, like you mentioned, they're like, their overturn is crazy. The dentist goes in, don't like what it is, and they just leave, right? Like you mentioned. But what is that doing to that pit, to the one, to the dentist mental health, and also at the result of it, the patients are not getting the experience. So, do you believe that the corporate dentistry is actually good for the industry in general?
It depends how you look at it. So, first of all, I've never worked at a DSO, so I don't have direct experience, right? So, I'm kind of reliant on people like you to tell me what you went through. What I can say is from the tech side of things, right? So, look at it from all perspectives. That's usually what I tell people to do. Is you want to zoom out. Every new thing will be difficult in the beginning until it really finds its footing. And what that means is there will be no such thing as a perfect solution to anything. It comes down to having choice. What's more important is that we will have certain amount of dentists who will want something like a DSO. They're pretty much okay with it if they don't have to manage all the clinical work, and for them, they feel that's not who they are. So for them, DSOs actually becomes a pretty comfortable option for a few years at least, right? And when it comes to the patient experience, again, I am of the belief that it's the quality of the doctor that delivers the patient experience. So again, I'm limited in my experience there, but if you have a dentist who is being allowed to speak to the patient in a way that a certain amount of clinical integrity is allowed to be maintained, you're doing good to both sides. Now, if the DSO is becoming too stringent on here's how much time you can give to this patient, if you do anything more than that, then here's a red mark or something, or if they're saying here's the only product we will allow you to use and you're not allowed to use anything else, and the whole process is so painful to introduce or try even anything new. So now you're limiting the dentist's experience and probably even the patients, because maybe they could have benefited from those other solutions. You don't usually have those problems if you're in an independent practice, because you get to decide, right? I'm going to have these kinds of products in my clinic, right? And you're kind of in that space of taking that decision. So it really depends on the personality of the dentist. As to my point, for a new kid coming out of university, they'll probably, without no brains, like this easy decision for them to jump into a DSO. Maybe if you and me were in that position with all that debt, I would probably say, hey, let me get some experience here in my early years so that at least I know what I'm doing, because we're not all that confident when we come out of university. Let's be honest, they can train us the best they can, but there's still that little butterflies in your tummy. So you could do that, but then for DSOs, the challenge is how do you keep those people in house? What are you really doing to develop them? Are you really giving them a fun experience? Are you making dentistry fun? So a lot of my efforts are from the industry side. Is we have to make the dentist as a core and center to the DSO so that they can start building a system where the dentist feels like, hey, I actually love this DSO. For example, you can say something like, oh, they introduce these really novel products to us and we get to play around with these really cool ideas, and it really feels great because I can actually do that. And I know a bunch of friends who are in these other DSOs who don't get to do that. So my whole background work, the efforts that I do in the back end is I'm trying to talk to DSO, trying to talk to the leadership there. And I'm trying to tell them this is how you keep your dentist from moving, because you're creating something for them to stick around for. And otherwise, it's the same thing in a clinic. 10 years down the line, you're going to be like 50,000th cavity of the day. This is insane. It's boring. Can I please go? And so we're trying to create a solution of how do you create a good experience for the dentist? And the conversation starts there. When will it get stabilized? I don't think it ever will, because look at AI now. So now you have a new thing to deal with. So it's just the person. You have a choice. As long as you have a choice, you're good. If you don't have choices, that's a problem.
Yeah, that is so fascinating that you just said that because the last DSO, well, I worked for a few DSOs and I'm not going to name anybody's name, but that you said something that is so, like that was one of the main issues that I walked away from that because these DSOs, they come up with their own product and they're like, this is the only product you can use, but you're like, okay, but like what happened to this other product? Maybe this product is, but because they created this product that they benefit from it, but not the patient, that's what I had a problem with. You know, like you said that. I'm like, this makes no sense. This patient can like benefit from this product that you're not offering, but you're limiting in that patient experience based on your business desires, but not the patient desire. And that's what I had a problem with. That I was like, yeah, this doesn't align with what I'm trying to do for the patient and the patient experience. And that's the other thing too, is like that recently, well, not recently, in the past like a year, I've been a big advocate on a lot of this bigger DSOs, like the mega DSOs. The problem that I see with them is that the people that are sitting at top of their chain, like the top of the food chain, they're not a dentist, right? They're like non-clinical. They
Yeah.
don't understand nothing about the clinic, but yet they're trying to run an organization that is so heavily clinical run. Like it doesn't matter how many people you put as a clinical director, but if you as a CEO don't have no understanding and knowledge of what that clinical process is like, you are making a decision from the business perspective of it, but not from a clinical perspective of it. And that's what I always been having a problem with. And that's why I'm a big advocate. I'm like, regardless of where your organization is going, you have to at some point you got to be able to stop and say, I got to put a CEO in place that is a dentist so that they can relate back to that doctor that is working at a clinical level. And that's what I see so many problems with these mega organizations, that like there's so much disconnect into like what is really going on. But like I said, I think that's just my prediction for the next 5 to 10 years for dentistry. I think that the DSO market with this younger generation of dentists, I think is going to change, right? Just like I look at it as like MySpace, or I look at it as like anything else, Snapchat, right? They have their hype, and then it kind of like the new thing came out and they kind of went out of business, right? Like MySpace went out because Instagram came, YouTube came, right? I feel like we're in that transitional phase. That's just what I see in the marketplace. It's like a lot of this, even the younger dentists that I talk to or I see, is that they're looking for something a little more subtle, but they also want to be in an area and an environment where they feel empowered, right? Because at this mega DSOs, you're not going to feel that way because of that, because you're not going to feel what's really going on. I think the marketplace, I believe, is going to transition to as something new, something that I think the dentist is going to have more saying and more doing. And I think in the US, it's kind of, there's a lot of organizations that I see that working to advocate for like private practices. And I think if that comes back, the patient experience and the patient journey will change. Because, for example, for myself, one of my patients told me, "Oh, you sound so corporate," and I was like, "Oh God." I was like, "This is not good." Because again, they kind of program you so that way you're like, you have to do this, you have, so like you are in this box and you can't do anything else. And like when I hear that from the patient, it was like it almost broke my heart, that I was like, man, this is just I was like, this is not me, I gotta
I've
leave. Exactly. But I was like, this is not what. And the other thing you mentioned is, why do you believe that dental schools are so expensive? Especially, like, for example, for myself, I spent almost like $550,000 on my education, like you said, and it becomes very scary, like, right? It's like, oh man, like I have this big debt behind me. I have to make it. I have this pressure of like, why do you think that education is becoming so? I mean, well, in the US is ridiculous. The education here, system here sucks. That's just the reality of it. But why do you think that is? Do you think that there's going to be a hope for a shift, or do you think it's going to continue and getting more expensive?
That's a hard one to predict. A, because I'm not there, right? And the simple answer is, let's divert our energy to finding ways to safeguard ourselves rather than question the system itself. And that's usually my approach to life in general, which is, who knows why it's expensive? Is there really a need for education to be that expensive? I can be a general citizen and say no, Now, I live in Switzerland where it's literally free, right? But there's a different there are different problems in Switzerland. So, for example, at me as an expat dentist, when I came here, I did my years of practice. I'm a good dentist. I was in Slovenia, which was a European country, before I came to Switzerland. And then I land here and they're like, nope, we're not going to let you practice unless you redo the whole education from scratch in French. And there was no transparency in that decision. So when you're in those shoes, you're kind of frustrated. You're like, what the hell? Like, what else do you need? Like, I have silver medals, I got gold medals, I got everything that my country recognizes as pretty awesome dentist, stamped. But they're like, yeah, we don't really, yeah, your name is too long. I don't know. So, so then it's a problem. So in the US, it's definitely the price, but then you also have structures and systems in place where somehow all dentists that are generated somehow do end up finding a job, whether it's in a DSO or they have a clinical practice. At least they get that chance to get things going. Now, if you move to countries like India, you come out of dental university, you come out of dental school, it's so freaky saturated because Asia is obsessed with doctors and engineers. We still are as a nation. Every parent that has a baby born, it's like the first thing they say in the hospital, which is like, oh, you're going to be a doctor. You're like, a lot of dentists now, you're seeing a reduction in the people entering dental school now in certain Asian countries because they kind of woke up. They're woke now. They're like, wait a minute, how much are they going to pay me? Like, is this insane? And then in the Asia, it's the parents who pay. That's usually a trend because it's a cultural thing, right? So the parents, you're like, oh, I'm going to make my kid into a doctor. I'm going to save my money. I'm going to get them through this. It's my responsibility. And we're blessed to have that. I come from an Asian family. But as a kid, you kind of don't really like, you want to be on your own feet. You want to be supporting your parents at some point. You want to support yourself. So it really doesn't matter where you, and I'm very heavily traveled. As I said, I'm the daughter of a diplomat. So I traveled the world literally, not as a tourist, but as local. So I can tell you, you go anywhere in the world, there's always something wrong with something. So I go into that headspace of what can we do to solve this thing which we know exists, right? And let's put our energy into finding the solution, which is what you guys and what I'm doing. Both of us are doing that. So we stepped into solution mode and we're like, whatever the reasons are for the price, whatever the reasons are for the culture, whatever the reasons are for these taboos, let it be, let it go, right? It is what it is. And now let's try and think beyond this, right? So don't feel stuck. No one's really stuck. You have choices. People like you and me are building more choices now for people to take advantage of. The question is, how much time are you spending in finding these solutions rather than complaining about what's not right? So that's where I really kind of challenge people on, go beyond that place. Start talking differently in here in your head. What language are you using to yourself? Try and jump into solution mode and you're not stuck. You're not. You can make a great living. You just got to go do something different. You got to get a new experience in place. So yeah, that's my input there.
No, that's absolutely so true. I mean, yeah, sometimes when I think about, when we started DentMent and this platform and everything else, some days, even with this one, I'm like, what I saw last time was one of those moments that I was like, man, I'm tired. I don't want to answer no more phone calls. I don't want to talk to no more developers. I'm done. But that's the fun part of doing what we do, right? Because you look at, for me, when I came out and I saw the problem, I saw the lack of that business understanding in dental world and why the DSOs market exists. Like, that's why I was like, there has to be a better way of doing things, because that way, one, you improve the patient experience, and two, you give the dentist all the freedom to make the decisions that they want to make. They're not forced into, oh, I gotta go do this just because it's the norm, right? I don't like to be part of the norm. I hate the norm. I like to be outside of I do things that are outside of every boundaries because that's what I do, right? And I think that's where the real growth happens, when you're able to kind of like not be afraid of taking that step towards something different, right? And I think that's really where the real growth happens. Um, the one thing that I read about you is, you put on your LinkedIn, training dentists on medical devices. What does that really, like, what is that part of it look like for you? Like, what are you really focusing on in that area? What is the area of expertise for you?
Yeah. it's so important. The simple way to explain it is this is me managing and working with a lot of key opinion leaders over the years. And the way it works in the industry side is you have an idea, you're going to go to someone with the idea. Let's say that you're an engineer or a chemist, right? You've got an idea for a new material or a new product. You're going to go and raise funds. When you're in that process of raising funds, you will meet a few people in the dental space who will then direct you to 2 or 3 people that they know personally, who are usually dentists, and they're supporting every other competitor of that idea, right? So when you work with these key opinion leaders, they're so strong in their research, they're so strong in really knowing the science behind that technology and that the clinical and the biology behind it. There's no doubt about that. But the more you work with them, what the companies are silently hoping for is, I really wish this guy or this girl really knew how things actually work when you're actually building the damn thing. Because that's the knowledge gap that even the best people have, because we're so busy. Key opinion leaders are so busy. They've got clinics to do, they've got university arms to manage, they've got teams, they've got multiple clinics sometimes, and they're presenting and they're traveling and they're doing a lot of, their time is so time boxed. They're very, very limited. So what kind of advice are they really providing to a new product that comes on their table? It's very linear. It's like, yeah, here's what I think. That guy is doing it like this. That company is doing it like this. Here's what I feel, XYZ. Okay. When you reach X stage, come back to me and we'll talk. That's usually how the first touch point happens. Now, if we are able to share with these dentists, okay, what you just told them is at least 18 months to 2 years of additional work. The advice that you just gave them, if you could just move this here, if you could do this like this, if you could just, because we're ideas people, dentists understand clinical, we love sharing ideas. We're actually really good at it, right? But if you don't understand what it actually means, how is your words being translated on the other end? If you knew that, you might change the way that you actually advise people, right? So the whole idea behind the Premium Dental Advisor program was to fill that niche, that need, that knowledge gap, which was step into the shoes of the people on the other end and see what all they are required to do, and also understand who's the guy who's calling the shots here. So I even train people on investors. What does it mean to have an idea for a dental product or a medical product and go and start building it? What does that actually mean? And a lot of the times, to your point, is coming back to that point of, there's not a lot of clinicians on the top. I think everybody feels that. And we as clinicians feel that if only a dentist were the CEO, things might change. But the reality of the situation is, if you're investor backed, if you're VC backed, it's a whole different game. Even if you want to do what is right for the patient and the dentist and the care provider, sometimes the system is designed in a way which you should know if you really want to be smart and position yourself in a way where people come to you for advice and start consulting you for product support. So a lot of that program is kind of opening people's eyes and ears to, this is what you think. And I have a lot of sections in my modules, which is real talk. That's what I call it. And I'm just sitting on the sofa and I'm like, this is what you think. This is how it's really happening. And you need to know this, because if you don't know this, well, you're just going to be another person who holds a product and you're like, oh, well, if I could just have the button over here, and if you could just change, that one has blue light and that one has green. There's so much more than just that. And you want to be really smart in the way you position yourself. If you genuinely want to work in tech, then you're a force to reckon. If you can just add that knowledge to you, there's no stopping to where you can go, and you'll make a far better CEO because now you know how to talk to both sides of the table. You know what I mean? So that's my dream. That's why I do this. I want dentists to feel empowered. But understanding medical device development is so core, and it's totally missing in the current system. So I just went ahead and created that solution because I was like, well, might as well, because, people need this. So here we are.
That's awesome. Well, the one thing that I wanted to ask you is, what is that stubborn optimism really truly means?
And
That's a unique one.
that's a title on its own. Oh, man. So stubborn optimism, it comes from authentic leadership. So I speak a lot about where is the future of leadership headed based on the behavior of the current market. So when I say market, the employees right now who are coming out, the new generation, people are hungry for authentic leaders. And the ones who've been successful in the past, and by the way, I don't define success as who's the billionaire, because that's actually not very hard to do if you're just stick at it and you have a certain demeanor to you. But it's more about who will I follow genuinely, right? Who is a person that's reflecting my values and my principles? And authentic leaders, you can take a name of a few. You have Gandhi, you have Mandela, you have Mother Teresa. These are all people who are just so themselves. And stubborn optimism is kind of, let me take the example of Gandhi or Mandela even. So Gandhi was like, okay, we have this problem. We got these Britishers that we don't want ruling our country anymore. But his approach was, I'm going to defy the way people usually do it. And he made a lot of enemies in house because of his approach. But he was like, I'm going to live like a farmer. I'm going to represent India at the topmost level. So even the way he dressed, even the way that he spoke. But when he spoke with such authority because what he was saying was so true and nobody could deny the truth. So stubborn optimism is that, where you're like, I'm going to do what I know my heart tells me as the right morally principled thing to do. And these are my values. And there is nothing on the planet that can move me away from these three values that I hold. So in my case, when I sat down, when I decided to let's go into the founder CEO journey, the joy of it, to your point of why am I doing this today? We all have those days. We're doing this because we want to become better people individually. And we want to challenge ourselves into our next level, our next version of ourselves from 5 years ago. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing all of this work that we do. So you need to have a certain amount of stubbornness to kind of make it through. But then if you want to be stubborn, be an optimist, not a pessimist, because then it's not a sustainable journey. If you're always thinking negative that, oh, let me do it like this because then what if that happens? What if that happens? If you're always in that space, you need to build that iron core inside of you and say, I'm going to do it this way. If it works or doesn't matter, but this is aligned with my version 5 years from now. And that's why I'm doing it. And nobody's going to divert my attention from it, right? That's stubborn optimism.
I love that. That's because sometimes when you hear stubborn, you're like, oh God. But yes, I dealt with some stubborn people in the past. So I was like, oh man.
Hey man, I'm a Taurus, so I'm like the example of stubbornness. I'm like, all Taurians are very, very stubborn. But then I'm like, yeah, you see people like Mandela, they're like, yeah, they put me in prison for 30 years. I'm still going to be grateful for the experience. Like, there's just this, I call that stubbornness. That's like, nobody can change me from speaking with kindness. Nobody, Mother Teresa, they were all extreme stubborn optimists. There's no swaying them from their purpose, but they're going to do it with a higher moral positioning. And that's a good way to lead your life. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I never talked about this story, but I'm gonna just you said something about believing and just doing it with kindness. So my grandfather, my dad's father, he was a hardcore Muslim in Iran, and he changed his religion and he became Baha'i, and then he got assassinated in Iran, and he was thrown in jail for I don't know 8 to 10 years of his life, and then they finally assassinated him because of his belief. But the one thing that I from him that I learned a lot was the same thing. He's like, I believe in what I believe in. I'm gonna speak my mind no matter what it is, and then if my life has to go for it, that's fine. But it's just kind of like from early on in my life, I really like took that as like if you believe in something so strongly, you're gonna do it no matter what, right? That's how we are. And I think in a way my grandpa was a stubborn man too. So that's really I think he was his same thing. I think it was like that optimist person that he was like, I have to do something to change something or to be able to like give something of myself to be able to change landscape of something. And I think that's so amazing when you can find that common ground. Yeah.
And the future is something I also coach people on is you got to become really smart at talking.
Mm,
If you really want to achieve the good stuff, it's about maturity. And how do you become mature? By putting yourself into new experiences
yeah.
because it's going to teach you.
Yeah.
So to have that courage to say, I've done this, I've perfected this thing, and now it's time to try something new, to have that courage, and then to learn how to speak in that new experience that you're creating for yourself. That's a great skill. And something I always say is a skill a year leaps life beyond fear. You want one new skill every year, and you're going to leave a fearful version of yourself every single year, because you might as well lean in to it and then realize on the other end, hey, it wasn't that bad. Like, I learned how to edit videos this year, and I was like, CapCut, and now you can show me a video. I'm like, I know how to do this now. And then I'm now able to guide my editing team and like, hey guys, I could have hired AI to do this, but I have you guys for a reason, because you're human. So can we please make the cuts like really nice and make sense? I know what they're doing on their end, and it's such a good thing to have in general. And of course, I'm a dentist. Talk to me about anything in dentistry. I still know my stuff. I'm still pretty good at it. Talk to me about anything in tech. I know how to do that too. And that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And that's where the optimism starts coming out from. So it's really a step by step process, and you don't have to feel stuck. I know everybody has debt. I know everybody's going through so many things. We all have. But you don't have to define yourself based on that. What you want to do is keep seeking something new, and don't completely sabotage what you have going on. Keep that. Be smart, be mature, and you will find something out for you. So surround yourself with the people you want to become. So, start talking, listening to these podcasts, listening to the people who speak about it. Start changing your environment, and your environment will take you with open arms.
Man, I love that. I need to print that, put it on my wall as a code. I love that. Thank you so much. These are the type of conversation that I truly enjoy. Man, I started my day right today. I love it. I love
See?
it. I think it's so important, and I think it's so important, like you said, for the dentist to stop being afraid of like stepping out of that comfort zone and just really truly find the freedom to do something else. I had Dr. Omid. He's actually in the UK, and he came up with this company called Tooth Marketing. Same conversation. He's like, man, I just woke up and I said, do I want to go in and do another filling? Hey, do I want to go and do another crown prep? And he's like, the answer to it was no. And he's like, I just decide to start this marketing company that is like dentists made for dentists. And I was like, these are the type of conversation that I love having, because the dentists are finding ways to do other things that they can still be successful. They can still make money. Like, you're never going to lose your hand skills of what you went. And so you can always turn back to it, right? But if you never step out and you follow the path of everybody else, then you're never really going to grow as a person, right? It's like, I got to get out of dental school and go open 30 practices and drink myself to death every night. So it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and,
And
and
I can also, I want to stress also the fact, the decisions we make when we're actually out. So your partner, health comes in. The universe is going to throw curveballs at random moments, and that you have zero control over. But it's about, who do you want to be? If I see you 10 years from now, how is that man talking? How is that woman talking? Is she kind? Is she poised? Is she graceful? Is she elegant? But is she sharp? Can she speak to anyone in the room? Right. And if you're able to see that version of yourself, you will start taking decisions in the today. But you have to be smart and mature in the sense, curveballs will come. You got to find the right people around you. And if you don't have the right people around you, have the courage to step out of that too. You need to be able to have the courage to do these things. And yeah, there's so much options out there. And to the entrepreneurs, again, a part of my program was, I want those entrepreneurs to know what it takes to build a product, so that they don't go into it willy-nilly, like, okay, let me see what happens. Don't stop what you have going on. Be smart. Start a gradual step-by-step process, and that's way smarter than stop this, start this. It's usually a better way to approach your career.
yeah, absolutely. I think I always have the conversation with my brothers. I'm like, you got to stop trying to do so many things. Just take one thing, finish it, go to the next one, because eventually you never achieve anything, right? Because you're always like jumping from one thing to another. You're trying to figure yourself out, and then 5 years go by and you're like, man, I didn't do anything, right? And that's why, like you said, I think finding a lot of time, how do people find the courage to do certain things? Because for some people it's so hard. to sometimes say, I gotta find the courage to do XYZ, because they're so afraid of like doing it. So
Yes.
for you, like for example, you were in India, you were practicing dentist, you had all the Oscars that were under the sun, you had all the diamond plates, you had all these things, but you left that comfort and you went to a totally different country, you got married, and then they told you you can't practice dentistry. So you found the courage to do all those things. Where does that courage comes in, and what is your advice for people that are trying to find that courage?
So there's two things. I love that question. Two things. Number one, if you wanna, your intuition is always gonna nudge you. So listen to your body, listen to yourself, because when in those moments where courage is needed from you, you're gonna know. It's a nagging feeling inside of you. And whether you act on it or not is all a mind game, because whatever you're thinking and how you're talking to yourself up here is the first step. So you want to start flipping the way you're talking to yourself first, right? And you want to be able to say to yourself that, why am I thinking in this direction? Why can't I have the courage to think the other way? So if you're afraid to take a leap and think that it'll be an absolute failure, what if it's an absolute success? Right? So, but we're scared to think about that part because everybody around us is also kind of nudging us. Oh, why you're a dentist? Why would you So you have to start playing the mind game first, right? Um, and then when you're out, it's monotony. So, like you and me, at some point, what pushes you into courage is just the sheer understanding and clarity around this is no longer working. I cannot continue in this space anymore. And it's boredom. It kicks you into like action mode. And for some people, that works. And then when you're finally, you have to kind of kick yourself into it and you're like, well, I'm here, and then you start keep talking to yourself in a way that you're seeing success for yourself and you're not too eager. So understand time. And that's one place where I'm really zoomed out. It's getting deep now, but I'm going to leave you with this. But you want to understand that there is such a thing as there's a timing for everything. So your job is just to keep at it. Just keep at it. Whatever you know is right for you, listen to your body, start talking smartly to yourself, and just keep at it. And then let the universe do its thing. When the time is right, things will suddenly happen for you. You got to believe in that, right? And the reason they'll happen for you is because you kept in action mode. You kept going, you kept moving forward. And then there will be the other side too, the bottom of the wave, which is I've been at this, and then the universe will throw curveballs. Suddenly you're sick, something happened to someone you love. These things will happen, but you got to keep at it and understand that time doesn't follow your rules. It's going to happen the way it has to happen. Your only job is to just keep at it and then just see the magic unfold. That's really it.
Wow, that's another. You got me deep in there, man. I was like, yeah, I'm just like taking mental notes on everything you're saying. Yeah, it's so fascinating, man. I really, truly, man, I enjoyed this conversation so much,
Thank you,
Dr.
man.
Namrata.
Same.
I think you have such a powerful present to you that you bring that even like during this Zoom, you're in a different country, but it's I can feel it coming through the screen. I feel like you have touched my mind. I'm gonna, I want to go out, conquer the world, and figure things out.
Right here for you, man. I'm right here for you whenever you need
Thank
me.
you
I'm right
so much.
here
Yeah,
for you.
yes,
Anybody
no.
wants to reach out, just I'm right here. I'm right
Thank you
here.
so much. I think these are the type of conversation. This is why, like last year, like even with this podcasting, I was like, man, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna do it. I like you just mentioned, like 7, 8 months later, 60, 70 episode later, 4,000 subscribers later, 60,000 views later. It's like I sometimes I check in the morning and I'm like, man, this video got like what? Like you just don't realize that
Yeah.
these are the and I think these are the type of conversation that are so important. This is why I started this podcast, because of this type of conversation. Because these are the type of conversations that are not happening in our industry. No one is talking about this thing. No one is saying these things. No one is telling you that it's okay for you to just do something else. If you're not happy where you're at, do something else. If you're not excited for your day, do something to make it exciting. And I think these are the type of conversation that we need around our industry, and that's how we're able to uplift the next generation because of this. I mean, I feel uplifted, and I'm not the next generation. I'm already in it.
We're going to be leading them pretty soon, right? So
Yes.
if not us, then who?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
we got to do this for our peers, right? We're all
Absolutely.
one team. We're all one team.
You are all one thing. Like, I'm gonna just say this one last thing you said, that, and I'm gonna let you go. But I was talking to a doctor in Canada, and he said this is like, I'm not gonna take anything with me, so might as well help somebody along the way, do something that is gonna change the path. And that messaging is stuck with me so much. Like that's why, like at the beginning of like even building DentMent, like that idea just stuck with me. Like doesn't matter, just take the leap of faith, whatever, we'll figure it out. And then that's how life is. Well, Dr. Namrata, I appreciate you so much. This conversation was so
Same.
amazing. I really truly enjoyed this conversation so much. I'll definitely, we gotta have more of this conversation
Yes, please. Right here.
outside the riverside.
100% I'm right
All
here.
right.
And thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you.
Let's
Yeah,
talk
Doc.
about the next topic already. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Doc. You have a good day. Thank
Yay.
you. Bye bye.